Well, hello there, and welcome back to my kitchen table, a place in most homes where we can sit with family and friends and just talk for hours. Of course, in our case, we talk true crime. Before I start, may I just ask you to click the like button, please? It shows the bots that you are human and not just another bot. Thank you ever so much. Let's see where we're off to today. We're off to Colorado Springs. Never been there, but I believe it is a beautiful place. At an elevation of 6,035 foot and a population of just under 500,000, it's a city in Colorado at the eastern foot of the Rocky Mountains. Oh, it lies near glacier-carved Pikes Peak, a landmark in Pike National Forest, with hiking trails and a cog railway leading up to its 14,114 foot summit. I've got vertigo, and the thought of being 14,114 foot up a mountain does absolutely nothing for me. But the views must be amazing. Right, some people are going to like this guy, although I don't know why. And some people, mainly most of the human race, will not like him. Please be kind in your comments. Don't get me into trouble with YouTube. Thank you ever so much. Anderson Lee Aldrich, a resident of Colorado Springs, was actually born as Nicholas Franklin Brink on the 20th of May in the year 2000 in San Diego, California, to his father, Aaron Brink, a former pornographic film actor and mixed martial arts fighter, and his mother, Laura Vopel, the daughter of Randy Vopel, a Republican former member of the California State Assembly. Vopel and Brink actually separated and divorced within a year of the little guy being born. And Vopel actually got custody of him. But yeah, she didn't lead much of a life, to be honest. Multiple arrests and mental health evaluations. So that actually resulted in Aldrich actually being cared for by his mother's parents, well, her mother and his stepfather, who eventually became his legal guardians. Aldrich actually grew up in northern San Antonio in Texas for most of his life, and is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or LDS, or Mormons, whatever you want to call it. Although according to the church, they've not been involved in church services for at least a decade. So how could they say that they were members of the church? Anyway, Aldrich changed his name on the 28th of April 2016, shortly before turning 16, citing a desire to remove associations with Aaron Brink, who, by that point, had multiple criminal convictions. Aldrich's attorneys have said in court documents that their client identifies as non-binary and uses they/them pronouns. Neighbours allege Aldrich had made hateful comments towards the LGBTQ+ community in the past, including frequent usage of homophobic slurs. Aldrich never mentioned being non-binary prior to the shooting, and was referred to with masculine pronouns by his family. I have a theory on this. Not much of a theory, but a theory. I like having theories, as you might have guessed. Right, while he's sitting in court, he's having a laugh at his victims. members of the LGBTQ plus community. And he's doing this by saying that he's non-binary. Being non-binary means that you don't use pronouns that identify your sexuality, i.e. he or she, her or him, his or hers. See what I mean? So they use they, them, their instead. So by saying that he was non-binary, he's just laughing at the community. Because every time in court somebody makes a mistake and says he, they're going to go he, oh, sorry, they. So every time someone makes a mistake, they're going to be saying sorry. So he's going to be getting apologies from lawyers and the judge and anybody else that speaks. And he'll be having a little giggle inside, which is pretty sick, really. Police testified that they found rainbow-coloured shooting targets at his home. Experts in online extremism have voiced the possibility that Aldrich's proclaimed self-identification could be disingenuous. No shit, Sherlock. While the Centre for Countering Digital Hate acknowledges the suspects' past actions and impact on the LGBTQ plus community. On June 18th, 2021, this gives you just an example of the kind of man that he is. Although, yeah. On June 18th, 2021, his grandparents actually told him that they were considering moving to Florida, to retire to Florida. And he wasn't happy. Not just because they were moving to Florida. No. It's because he'd be losing access to the materials that he's got stored in the basement, which were to be used for conducting a mass shooting and a bombing. He held his grandparents hostage. What was he hoping they'd do? Change their mind? He actually threatened to murder them. He let them go eventually. And then he shifted himself and his goods to his mother's home and holed up there. And during an hour-long standoff with Colorado SWAT, an armed Aldrich live-streamed from inside and threatened to blow the house up. Neighbours' homes had to be evacuated. When he surrendered, SWAT went in to clear the premises and they found a tub filled with explosive-grade materials, including ammonium nitrate and tannerite. That was recovered alongside handguns, ballistic vests and gas masks. He was jailed and charged with multiple counts of kidnapping and felony menacing. He entered a plea of not guilty and was released on bail. The case went absolutely nowhere, in all honesty, and I mean nowhere. Because Vopal and his mother and the grandparents refused to accept any subpoena under technical grounds, although I don't know what the technical grounds were, to avoid testifying against Aldrich. So in July 2022, the case was dismissed and his records were sealed a month later. Twice before the 2021 incident, Aldrich had been reported to Colorado police for escalating homicidal behaviour. On June 17, 2021, Aldrich's great-aunt contacted the FBI and reported that Aldrich was planning on killing Christians and government employees. That was after Aldrich's grandfather had reported being threatened by him. However, the family did not press charges with the local police. There's no record that law enforcement authorities or Aldrich's relatives even attempted to trigger the Colorado red flag law, which would have allowed for the seizure of any weapons and ammunition that Aldrich possessed. Aldrich had allegedly, I hate that word. Aldrich created a free speech website that hosted violent and racist content, including a video that advocated killing civilians to cleanse society. A second site that was identified as a brother website on the homepage had hosted footage of the 2022 Buffalo shooting. On the night of the Q Club shooting, came to display 4 other videos, including one which apparently showed Aldrich's face reflected in the car's rearview mirror. Duh. Testimony from a February 2023 hearing implied that Aldrich had operated a neo-Nazi website prior to the shooting. On November the 19th, in the late evening, going into November the 20th, 2022, an anti-LGBTQ plus motivated mass shooting occurred at Club Q, a gay bar in Colorado Springs, Colorado, United States. 5 people were murdered and 25 others were injured, 19 of them injured by gunfire. The shooter was 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich, and he was also injured while being restrained and was taken to a local hospital. Aldrich was then charged and remanded in custody. Apparently on his mugshot, he had various cuts and bruises on his face, including 2 very swollen black eyes, a possible broken nose, and a split lip. Oh dear. After the shooting, Aldrich was charged with 10 felony counts, 5 counts of murder, and 5 counts of committing a bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury. An El Paso County judge authorised the sealing of Aldrich's prior arrest records, saying that the public release of the documents could jeopardise the ongoing investigation. Aldrich was represented by a public defender. On December the 6th, 2022, Aldrich was charged with 305 criminal counts, including first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, assault of the first and second degree, and hate crimes. District Attorney Michael Allen said it was probably the most charges that we've ever filed in a single case on a murder case like this in the state of Colorado. On December the 8th, a judge ordered the unsealing of court documents pertaining to Aldrich's June 2021 arrest. On January 13th, 2023, Aldrich was charged with new felony offences for attempted murder and hate crimes. The additional 12 charges raised the total number of criminal counts to 317. That's 317. On June 26th, 2023, Aldrich pled guilty to the shooting and was officially sentenced to a total of 5 whole consecutive back-to-back life terms plus an additional 2,211 years, all of it without the possibility of parole. At some point during the trial, although I don't know when, he's actually quoted as saying, "I intentionally and after deliberation caused the death of each victim." That's what he told the judge, Michael McHenry. People in the courtroom wiped away tears as the judge explained the charges and read out the names of the victims. He says, "You are targeting a group of people for their simple existence. Like too many other people in our culture, meaning the human race, you chose to find a power that day behind the trigger of a gun. Your actions reflect the deepest malice of the human heart. And malice is almost always born of ignorance and fear." Well said, that judge. Relatives and friends of the victims were able to give statements in court to remember their loved ones and survivors. And they spoke about how their lives were forever altered just before midnight on the 19th of November, when the suspect walked in to Club Q and indiscriminately fired an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. This thing sitting in the courtroom is not a human. It is a monster, said Jessica Fierro, whose daughter's boyfriend was killed that night. She said, "The devil waits with open arms." The father of Club Q bartender said Daniel Davis Aston had been in the prime of his life when he was shot and killed. He was a huge light in this world that was snuffed out by a heinous, evil and cowardly act. It was Jeff Aston who said that, Daniel's dad. He said, "I will never again hear him laugh at my dad jokes." Daniel's mother, Sabrina, was among those who said that she would not forgive the crimes. Although another forgave Aldrich without excusing the crime. "I forgive this individual as they are a symbol of a broken system, of hate and vitriol pushed against us as a community," said Wyatt Kent, Aston's partner. "What brings joy to me is that this hurt individual will never be able to see the joy and the light that has been brought into our community as an outcome." Aldrich's body apparently shook as the victims and family members spoke. He kept his head down, looking down constantly. But then there was the odd occasion when he raised his eyes to look at the screen and the pictures of the victims. He's never revealed a motivation, and he declined to address the court during the sentencing part of the hearing. The defence attorney, Joseph Archambault, said they want everyone to know they're sorry. Now, like I said before, being non-binary, to him, it's a joke. So I'm not giving him that option, I'm afraid. So no offence to the LGBTQ, but how many times have I said this? LGBTQ plus community. No offence meant. But I'm not going to give him that option. He wants everyone to know he is sorry. On June 26, 2023, Aldrich, who pleaded guilty to the shooting and was formally sentenced, I've got to say it again, of 5 consecutive life terms plus an additional 2,211 years in prison. All of it without the possibility of parole. Just love saying it. It's not the fact that who it was and what he's done. It's the fact that a judge can actually do that. This is unheard of in the UK. Totally unheard of. I've done a story last week about a guy who'd 11 people, ranging from an 11-year-old boy to a 72-year-old woman. And he was given like 33 consecutive life sentences with an order to serve a minimum of 40 years. It's a joke. He should never get out. Like this guy, he's never going to get out. Thank God. On January the 16th, 2024, Aldrich was additionally charged with 50 federal hate crimes in connection with the shooting. So he was going to go back to court and face another 50 charges. Wonder what he'll get for them. Club Q is located on the 3430 block of North Academy Boulevard and opened in 2002. It was, for a time, the only LGBTQ plus club in Colorado Springs. Colorado's second most populous city, with a population of nearly 500,000, like I said. A 2021 article by Denver-based magazine 5280 noted the club to be a place where LGBTQ plus folks went for drag performances, dance parties and drinks. The shooting occurred on the eve of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. It was also one of the drag artists' birthdays. Right, this acronym. A lot of people have problems with it. LGBTQ plus is the one that I know. I think it's probably because of my age. Although, when acronyms first started getting used to identify a specific community, or the specific community, I think it was just LGB then, which was lesbian, gay and bisexual. And then the TQ plus came along. Now it's LGBTQIA2S plus. I'll never remember that. The acronym stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and trans, queer and questioning, intersex, asexual or agender, and two-spirit. This plus sign signifies additional identity terms. There you go. If you didn't know before, you know now. I'm going to stick with the LGBTQ plus because, like I said, that's the one I'm used to. Since 2019, Colorado has had a red flag law that allows citizens or law enforcement to petition a court to order the removal of firearms from potentially dangerous persons. Now, some states have actually declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. In other words, sod the red flag law. Anybody can actually identify somebody who maybe has mental health issues and is going through a bad time, and they know they've got guns or even a bomb in the basement, like this guy, and requests that somebody go around and take all his gear off him. And it's a judge that places the order. They just got to request it. But in Colorado, or the El Paso County, where the shooting occurred, it's the sheriff, the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, explicit policy not to petition for the red flag law, which I just don't understand. Because if that would have happened on the occasion when he held his grandparents hostage and SWAT got involved and all that kind of stuff. If it had even if it had happened then, he wouldn't have been able to buy any more guns or bomb building materials, and it could have stopped what happened. According to the police chief, the shooting began when Anderson Lee Aldrich entered Club Q while a dance party was being held. He was wielding an AR-15 style rifle, carrying multiple magazines of ammunition and wearing body armour. Aldrich immediately began firing at employees and patrons while moving further into the building. Many survivors at first mistook the gunfire for being part of the music, until shots continued and the occupants actually saw the muzzle flashes. Multiple people sheltered behind the bar and in dressing rooms, while others just lay on the floor. A few minutes into the shooting, a club patron, identified as US Army veteran Richard M. Fierro, charged across the room and tackled Aldrich to the ground, causing the rifle to fall out of his reach. Fierro then grabbed a handgun from the shooter's hand and used it to hit the shooter repeatedly in the head. He pistol whipped him. Fierro was assisted by two other patrons, including Thomas James. Now, one of these two, actually, this is like, that saying 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. That's what it's been like. What I've just said that Richard M. Fierro did, half of the time that I've been reading, it was him. The other half of the time, it was a guy called Thomas James. So, take your pick. Thomas James actually moved the rifle away to safety, and a trans woman used her high heel shoes to stomp on the shooter and helped disable and hold the shooter down until the authorities arrived. Right, now, this guy who I just mentioned, Thomas James, he's a member of the US Navy who was injured while helping prevent further harm during the shooting. And he said that he simply wanted to save the family that he'd found. Petty Officer Second Class Thomas James made his first public comment on the shooting in a statement issued through Centura Penrose Hospital in Colorado Springs, where he was recovering from undisclosed injuries during the attack. He said, "If I had my way, I would shield everyone I could from the nonsensical acts of hate in the world. But I'm only one person." He said, "Thankfully, we are a family, and family looks after one another. I want to support everyone who has known the pain and loss that have been all too common these past few years. My thoughts are with those we lost on November 19 and those who are still recovering from their injuries." James urged young members of the LGBTQ plus community to be brave. He said, "Your family is out there. You are loved and valued. So when you come out of that closet, come out swinging." Police received an initial call for services regarding the shooting at 11:56 p.m. on November the 19th, 2022, with the first officer being dispatched within a minute. A total of 39 patrol officers from all 4 divisions of the Colorado Springs Police Department along with 34 firefighters and 11 ambulances, responded to the scene. The suspect was in custody within about 5 minutes after the first 911 call. After the shooting stopped, many were at first reluctant to leave from hiding spots because they were unsure if the shooter had left or he was just reloading. Fierro, who had been covered in blood, was placed in police custody in a squad car for over an hour. That was before he was cleared of suspicion and released. I'm sure he understood the situation. The injured were transported to 3 hospitals: Penrose Hospital, Memorial Hospital Central, and Memorial Hospital North. Some ambulances had to transport up to 3 patients at a time, and quite a few went in police squad cars. 5 people were killed, 25 others were injured in the shooting, of whom 19 were by gunfire. One of the deceased victims, Daniel Aston, was a bar supervisor and a frequent performer at the nightclub. Another fatality, Raymond Vance, was the boyfriend of Fierro's daughter. During a press conference, the chief of the Colorado Springs Police Department made a point to say the department respected all community members and that they would identify the deceased by the names that their loved ones used. And he read the names of the deceased victims: Daniel Davis Aston, age 28, Kelly Loving, age 40, Ashley Powell, age 35, Derek Rump, age 38, and Raymond Green Vance, age 22. 22, so your baby. A vigil was held on November the 20th with standing room only at All Souls Unitarian Church, which was also attended by several members of the City Council. Additional memorials and events were held throughout the week, which promoted spaces for people to gather and donate. Donation drives were set up shortly after the shooting from both local organisations and a GoFundMe. Well, a few GoFundMe fundraisers for the victims and their families. On November the 24th, Colorado Springs Evangelical Ministry, Focus on the Family, was targeted with a graffiti message. It said, "Their blood is on your hands. 5 lives taken." The shooting was condemned by certain politicians in the immediate aftermath. United States President Joe Biden said, "While no motive in this attack is yet clear, we know that the LGBTQ+ community has been subjected to horrific hate violence in recent years." Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, gosh, I hope I said that right, said the anti-LGBTQ+ political discourse is partially to blame for the shooting. The El Paso County government said, "We are deeply saddened by the senseless shooting that occurred early this morning in Colorado Springs Club Q." And they sent their condolences and the support to the victims and families. Colorado's red flag law and its application were scrutinized by advocates of gun violence prevention, politicians, and many other people. Colorado's governor, Jared Polis, the first openly gay man elected governor in the US, appeared on TV saying he supported increasing licensing requirements for semi-automatic weapons, improving mental health services, and better use of red flag laws that allow courts to remove weapons from people having mental health crisis and who may be in danger, or may be a danger. Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers said law enforcement should have taken advantage of the law under appropriate circumstances, while cautioning against jumping to conclusions about the application of the law to the shooting. Colorado State Representative Tom Sullivan, whose son, Alex Sullivan, was killed in the 2012 Aurora Theatre shooting, and sponsor of the state's red flag law, said the prior incident should have alerted the community. Jeffrey Swanson, a professor at Duke University School of Medicine, who studied red flag laws, said Colorado's law could have been invoked. LGBTQ plus groups have widely memorialised the victims and linked the mass shooting to recent rhetoric. Club Q said on social media that it was devastated by the senseless attack on our community and that it offered condolences to the victims and their families. Club Q co-owner Nick Grzeska, thank you Google for the pronunciation. I've probably said it wrong, but said he believed the targeting of a drag event was connected to the art form being cast in a false light in recent months by right-wing activists and politicians who complain about the sexualisation or grooming of children. It's different to walk down the street holding my boyfriend's hand and getting spit at, as opposed to a politician relating a drag queen to a groomer of their children. Grzeska said, "I would rather be spit on in the street than the hate get as bad as where we are today." Democrats have also been criticised by some for historically not doing enough to counteract anti-trans narratives and generally being reluctant to proactively defend the transgender community. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints released a statement condemning the shooting. The statement read, in part, "Senseless act of violence in Colorado Springs is of great sadness and concern to us. We are greatly troubled by any violence in our communities and condemn most especially violent acts that are the result of intolerance." In their responses to the shooting, several far-right media pundits have promoted an anti-LGBTQ plus grooming conspiracy theory, as well as perpetuating moral panic. Conservative media personality and political commentator Tucker Carlson displayed a banner on his Fox News programme, Tucker Carlson Tonight, that read, "Stop sexualizing kids," while later hosting a guest who said that mass shootings would keep happening until we end this evil agenda that is attacking children. YouTube political commentator and podcast host Tim Pool responded by criticising the venue's drag show performances, saying, "We shouldn't tolerate paedophiles grooming kids. Club Q had a grooming event." I don't agree with any of this, by the way, but I've got to be impartial. While other right-wing and conservative political commentators such as Matt Walsh Candace Owens, Chaya Raichik, and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene all continued to publish content targeting LGBTQ plus people, some of which focused especially on the Colorado area. After issuing a statement in which she offered her prayers to those to those affected by the shooting, and called for the lawless violence to end, Representative Lauren Boebert was accused of hypocrisy based on her history of anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric. Her past comments have included false grooming narratives and the litter boxes in schools hoax. She's been criticised for blocking gun controls. Jenna Ellis, a former lawyer of Donald Trump, was criticised for saying that the 5 people killed during the shooting were now reaping the consequences of eternal damnation, because she claimed that there was no evidence that the victims were Christian. Far-right provocateurs, including Jack Posobiec, questioned Richard Fierro's presence at the drag show. He was at a birthday party with his family. While others on the far right called Fierro a groomer and a faggot simply because he and his family were at Club Q. Analysis published by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue has estimated that online usage of the terms paedophile and groomer increased sharply in the days following the shooting as part of far-right and neo-Nazi celebration of and apologia for the mass shooting. The Department of Homeland Security also reported in a bulletin published on November the 30th that online extremists praised the actions of the shooter. A significant rise in homophobic and transphobic posts following the shooting have been tracked by LGBTQIA plus advocates, both in far-right forums such as Gab and even in more mainstream social media platforms such as Twitter, now known as X, Facebook and YouTube. On December the 14th, 2022, several survivors of the mass shooting presented their testimony to the United States House Committee on Oversight and Reform. The witnesses placed blame for the attack on hateful rhetoric, some of which you've just heard, calling it the direct cause of the shooting, and also warned of the dangers of hate speech, saying that it's damaging even in the absence of explicit calls for violence. At the hearing, Club Q owner Matthew Haynes pushed back at Republican politicians, saying, "I know that we, our Club Q community, are in the thoughts and prayers of so many of you. Unfortunately, these thoughts and prayers alone are not saving lives. They're not changing the rhetoric of hate." Haynes also read aloud examples of some of the hundreds of hateful messages received following the shooting, including one that said that the shooter was doing God's work. Survivor James Slough said that LGBTQ plus issues should not be politicised and urged respect for basic human rights. Outside of these spaces, we are continually being dehumanised, marginalised and targeted. The fear-based and hateful rhetoric surrounding the LGBTQ plus community especially around trans individuals and drag performers, leads to violence. Florida's Republican-dominated legislature recently passed a bill barring teachers from discussing gender identity or sexual orientation with younger students. A month later, references to paedophiles and grooming in relation to the LGBTQ plus people rose 400%, according to a report by the Human Rights Campaign. Lying about our community and making them into something they are not creates a different type of hate, said Grzeska. Grzeska, who started mopping floors and bartending at Club Q in 2003, said he hoped to channel his grief and anger into figuring out how to rebuild the unique support system in Colorado Springs for the LGBTQ plus community that the club, the only gay bar in the conservative town, provided. City and state officials offered support, and Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden reached out to Grzeska and co-owner Matthew Haynes to offer condolences and reiterate their support for the community, as well as their commitment to fighting back against hate and gun violence. After he became co-owner in 2014, Grzeska helped mould Club Q into a community centre, a platform to create a chosen family for LGBTQ plus people, especially for those estranged from their birth families. He said, when that system goes away, you realise how much more the bar really was providing. Oh, sorry, that was Justin Byrne, an organiser with Pikes Peak Pride. Those that may or may not have been a part of the Club Q family, where did they go? Byrne said, the shooting pulled back a curtain on a broader lack of resources for LGBTQ plus people in Colorado Springs. Byrne, Grzeska and others are working with national organisations to do an assessment of the community's needs as they develop a blueprint to offer a robust support network. Grzeska is looking to rebuild the loving culture and necessary support to make sure that this tragedy is turned into the best thing it can be for the city. Everybody needs community, he said. And those three words are something I totally agree with. Whether that's living on a council estate, living in, or supported living in an apartment complex in California, everybody needs community, irrespective as to what the sexuality is. That doesn't just mean a community for the LGBTQ community. No, everybody needs community. So, and that's where I'm going to end. Thank you so much for letting me tell you this story, and thank you so much for listening more to the point. If you found it interesting, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. It's free to do, so don't hold back. And remember this: before you put on a frown, be absolutely sure that there's no smiles available. I've been Sue, TTFN.